Hello, and welcome to the Camera Visual Mask Assets Setup and Implementation video. This video will cover the Getting Set Up and Implementation chapters of the documentation. So here I have step 1, created a project, a third-person template project, and I've already added the assets to my project. So in here we'll see in the content folder, Camera Visual Mask. Step 3, let's load up the example map. So if we go to example content, maps, we can load the example map. And then just check that project settings, the BP third person game mode is selected. So if we run, we should see that we load in with our standard third person blueprint. So let's just stop there. Step 4, which is the first and last step of implementing this for the example project, and that is to add the camera occlusion mask component to the player character. So we'll just open our content browser, head to third person, blueprints, the third person camera character rather. In here you'll see there's no camera occlusion mask component, so we'll click add, search camera occlusion mask. And on here you'll see that camera trace, under advanced, camera trace interp radius and interp speed, and ground Z-lock. These are the 4 main settings that you would change on this component. And also one more thing that I like to do is just set the target arm length of the camera boom component to about 700 is a good length. Alright, so let's save, compile and close that. And now when we run, we'll see we're zoomed out a little bit more. And if we run up to one of our occlusion examples, we'll see that, there we go, it is occluding as expected. And obviously the no occlusion will either block if you have the mesh set to blocking, or not block, but also not occlude. Alright. We can also just quickly have a look at some of these example ones. Yep, that's working. That's working. That's working nicely. We can also see that with a material that already has an existing opacity mask, the occlusion will still work just as expected. Right, let's take a look at how we would implement this occlusion into your materials. So if we stop that, let's head down to the implementation chapter. Step 1 is add in the camera occlusion mask component to your character. So we've already done that. Step 2 would be to add the material function, camera occlusion mask material function, to any base material you would like to use the occlusion mask on. These materials need to be set as masked or translucent. Opaque materials will not mask. And a fun fact that I put in there is that all of these materials, everything except for that test one over there, all these 8 materials here were made using one material base and just tweaking the material instance parameters for each material. So let's look at making our own material. So just for example's sake, I will grab a cube, drag that out into the world. I will make it a little bit bigger. Perfect. And then I will open the content browser. I'll head here and I'll make a new folder. We'll call it tutorial. And we will in here make a new folder. We'll call it materials. And then in here we will create a new material. We will call it m_occlusion base. You can call it whatever you like. So in here, we're just going to set our base color with a 3 vector. I will set it as black because I can change that using my material instance parameter. If I convert that to a parameter, that is, color. There we go. I need to change the material from opaque to masked. Translucent does work as well. So we'll click apply and save. And then we need to head back to the content browser, to our camera visual mask asset content, materials, the material function. Let's drag that in. And we'll just drag the result to opacity mask. Something I forgot to mention is that in this stage here, where you're adding the material function to your material, if you have a material already that uses the opacity mask output, you can just feed your opacity mask output into the material function, and that will handle combining the material function and your existing opacity mask output for you. If you'd like to see an example of this, check out the m_masked base material in the example content materials folder. Now back to the video. Straighten up those lines, we'll even make those in line as well. Apply and save, then we can close that. Alright, if we head back to that material, I will now create a material instance. We'll call it mi_test1. I will then also just drag it onto our mesh that we have here. Let's open it up and give it a nice color. We will say a nice blue. Yeah, I like that blue. Let's do that. If we close that and we hit play, by default the occlusion will look something like this. Nope, it won't, because I forgot one crucial step, and that's to change the collision on this mesh. Change the collision to custom, and then we just change the camera collision response to either overlap or ignore. I don't need to worry about overlap, so I will just choose ignore. And now if we try it, the default collision will look something like this. And from there we can just open up our material instance again and mess with some of the settings. So I would like to add some noise. So the default noise is probably my favorite. I don't need to change that. I'll change the strength to something like 4. I'll change the noise size to, we'll leave it at 1. Noise speed, let's put it down a little bit. I'm basically recreating the first example noise. The rest we will leave as is. So if we close that and we hit play, we should have, there we go, a nice occlusion mask. Thank you for watching this video on the setup and implementation. If you'd like to see some of these other examples gone into more depth about the occlusion, the Z-lock, the camera trace, check out my showcase video. Thank you for watching.